Video is very small.
Hannah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh.
Heard you for a minute, but it was quiet.
I think she jumped off and might need to reconnect. Let's give it a minute here. Back on, just connecting to audio. And Paula, we're still not hearing. I'm not seeing that you're connected to audio. All right, looks like you're connected, but you're muted.
All right, how about now?
Okay, sorry
Yes,
about
that's better.
Okay. Woo! Alrighty. Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to do the call to order. Oh no, I messed everything up here. Okay. Let's do introductions.
A little quiet, so if you could just speak up.
Okay.
Yes, we can go through introductions. And I don't know if you said it. Would you like to make a note of the change to the agenda order?
Oh, yes. We need to swap items 4 and 5 due to a time constraint with the City of Tucson speaker. So please note that that is changed.
So yeah, well, so I can lead us through introductions since I have everyone here on my screen. So we'll just quickly go around the room. If you're in the room with your microphone, you'll just have to push, there's a little button to unmute your mic. And then when you're done speaking, you can push the button again and that will mute your mic. So I will get started. So I'm Hannah Oden, Planning Coordinator at PAG.
I'm Nico Geralda, Transportation Planner at PAG.
Justin Fitzpatrick, Environmental Planning Administrator, PAG.
Mead Meyer Welburn, Integrated Planning Manager at PAG.
Brendan Lyons, Director of Government Affairs, Southern Arizona Home Builders Association.
Alejandra Fraijo, Water Wastewater Engineer, Kimley Horn, and I'm also part of the PAC EPAC.
Good morning, Carlos Alatorre, Director for Environmental and General Services for the City of Tucson.
Good morning, Charles Stack. I'm the Oro Valley Citizen Representative to EPAC PAG.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm just going to go down the list real quick on Zoom because I can see everyone. So just I'll just go down the order that I see folks. So just unmute yourself and you can introduce yourself. So the first on my list is Abigail Okrent.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Abigail Okrent. I'm actually the EPAC chair, but as I'm traveling right now and signal is spotty, Paula is chairing this meeting, but I'll be listening in and participating as much as I can.
Abby, I'm Andrew Agnew.
Hi, this is Andrew Agnew. I'm the City of Tucson citizen rep for the EPAC.
Austin Nunez.
Good morning. My name is Austin Nunez, Chairman, Sanibel District, on nomination.
Thank you. Christina McVie. And Christina, you are muted still if you're trying to speak. Okay, we still can't hear you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. David Barnes.
Yeah, David Barnes, Environment Land and Water Manager for Freeport, Sierra.
Thank you, David. Nalo.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nalo. I'm the Public Works Director for the town of Sarita.
Okay, thank you, Nalo. Jeanette.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jeanette Duren, the Transportation Planning Director at PAG.
Perfect. Jessica.
Good morning, everybody. Jessica Rodriguez, City of Tucson Water Department, Intergovernmental Relations.
Great, thank you, Jessica. I'm Katie Prudek.
Good morning. I'm Katie Prudek. I'm a conservation scientist at the Desert Museum.
Thank you, Katie. And Laura Berglund.
Hi, good morning. I'm Laura Berglund. I'm an attorney with Earth Justice and their Tribal Partnerships Program.
Thank you, Laura. Luke Cole.
Hi, folks. Luke Cole at the Sonoran Institute.
Thank you, Luke. Then Lydia Barker Winkworth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lydia Barker. I am a planner with the City of Tucson Department of Transportation and Mobility.
Thank you, Lydia. Melanie Alvarez.
Good morning. I am Melanie Alvarez, and I'm a planning coordinator with PAG.
Thank you, Melanie. Let's see. Paula, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Paula Bloomer, Town of Marana Environmental Project Manager and Vice Chair of EPAC.
Thank you, Paula. I'm going to go to our attendees list. Matt Holcomb.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Matt Holcomb. I'm the MS4 coordinator for the Arizona Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Matt. Nancy Neske. Nancy, so you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Okay, not hearing you, but yeah, thank you so much for joining. We'll move on to Adelis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Adelis, Public Works Project Manager for the town of Sahuarita.
Thank you, Adelis. Alexandra Chavez.
Good morning. I'm a planner with the town of Oro Valley.
Thank you. David Mack.
I'm the Industrial Stormwater Coordinator for ADOT.
Thank you, David. Josue.
Hey everybody, Josue Lisa, City of Tucson.
Thank you, Josue. And Lainey Meeker.
Hey everyone, Lainey Meeker, Program Supervisor with the Department of Water Resources.
Perfect. Thank you, Lainey. And we have our support team here. So we have Jeff, Jesse, then Yusa and Crystal in the room. So they're the ones keeping us going, providing IT and admin support. Was there anyone that I missed?
Yes, Kimberly Baeza with Pima County Wastewater.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Names were jumping around. Was there anyone else?
Hi, this is Melissa Fratello, Executive Director at Tucson Audubon, soon to be Tucson Bird Alliance.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Melissa. All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, this concludes introductions. So, Madam Vice Chair, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right. Let's go ahead and discuss the in-kind form.
Sure. So I will just read this here. And I will say I forgot to mention earlier, to maintain quorum, if you're a jurisdictional representative and have to leave early or jump off for any reason, and we just appreciate you letting us know, just so we can make sure that we maintain quorum for the meeting. But this is the in-kind form, so regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. So if you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Then time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. And if you did join us in person, there is a sign-in sheet, so just make sure you sign in before you leave. All right, I think we can go on to the next agenda item.
Sorry. Call to approve the meeting summary from October 3rd, 2024.
To accept the meeting summary.
All right, thank you,
So,
Chuck.
is there a second?
Yeah, this is Nalo with the town of Sarita. I second the motion.
All right, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the minutes are approved. All right, so then we will go on to number 4, the Copper World Natural and Cultural Heritage Impacts Update.
Sorry to
Laura-
interrupt. So we'll do the item number 5 first.
Sorry.
For the hard to recycle. No worries.
Oh, all right. Number 5, City of Tucson Hard to Recycle Plastics Program and Bifusion Partnership. Carlos De La Torre, Director of City of Tucson Environmental and General Services, and Heidi Kuwawa, Founder and CEO of Bifusion. Carlos is the Director of the Environmental and General Services Department for the City of Tucson. He oversees all waste and recycling services provided to the residents and businesses of this community, as well as the city's fleet, facilities management, and code enforcement divisions. He is working toward changing the mindset on how municipal solid waste at a landfill is viewed, from waste to an environmentally beneficial asset, and he continues to look for innovative ways to make Tucson a more sustainable community for our future. And Heidi is the founder and CEO of Bifusion. This is an information item, and representatives from the City of Tucson and Bifusion will present on the city's Hard to Recycle Plastics program and the partnership with Bifusion to reduce and reuse plastic waste. Thank you, you guys. Take it away.
Good morning. Again, Carlos De La Torre, City of Tucson. I'm assuming, Heidi, you're on the call, or so we didn't coordinate this presentation, so just feel free to jump in, Heidi, as I speak and move forward with it. Again, thank you for the opportunity really to present to you today on the city's City of Tucson and Bifusion Hard to Recycle Plastics program. Just want to give you a little bit of background. What is really a hard to recycle plastics? Hard to recycle plastics are the ones that they cannot be generally processed in our traditional curbside program. And they can't be sorted. They're either too small, they're either rectangulars, and they just don't meet the parameters of our current processor. That really creates a lot of, I would say, challenges for us in terms of understanding what can be recycled and what can't. And so we try to do really a lot of education and outreach, really to focus on primarily containers, plastic containers, And then anything else outside of that, which we consider film, straws, any plastic utensils, any polyester, those are some of the things that should not go into our recycling bin. The intent of that is really our program is based on collecting the best products, and then we can find so we can recover those and really put them in the open market so they can be recycled or be reused into an alternative materials. There are some things that we believe plastic is really is general and it's the same plastic. And it isn't. Each plastic has a different chemical composition structurally. And so even if we were to put those into a melting pot, we probably will not get a good product at the end of the day. So we need to continue to segregate the materials the best we can. And some of the valuable recyclable products, let's continue to put them in the bin so that we can recover them and put them into a good use. But the other plastics, the plastic products that's what this program is all about, is how can we collect them? How do we essentially process them and turn them into a final product and find the best beneficial use of that material? So what are the options in terms of really collecting plastic film? A few years ago, almost like a decade ago, there was a city code requirement that asked all the grocery stores really to set up a collection bin for grocery bags. That's still in place, but still not a whole lot of people know about it, and still really created some negative image in terms of what happens with a product. We essentially that goes back to the retailers, and the retailers essentially put it back into an end product. Sometimes we can find where that material may go. Sometimes we don't, and that's what really created some negative image in terms of the collection of those bags. But 2 years ago, the option came in. One of our former council members, Councilmember Kasachek, explored the option is what we obviously need to deal with this plastic situation. What is one of the solutions out there? There are obviously multiple solutions that essentially be embedded, but the one that essentially he identified as really a solution in front of us was really to pursue the biofusion technology. And really what that really entails, very simplistic, or I'm oversimplifying that, is really just we essentially, all the plastic film, straws, packaging material, essentially is put through a processing machine. That machine essentially compresses the plastic using heat and vapor, primarily vapor, to compress it into a block and turn it into a building block. That's essentially where that technology is, and that's what we're essentially continuing to pursue that as a solution. Certainly, there is a lot of concern in terms of, that may not be the best option. Why do we continue to focus on really finding a use? And we really should be pursuing the reduction of plastic use, and that's certainly still the reduce, recycle, and it's still those R's are still in front of really take more of a priority. But still, at the end of the day, we have to deal with the material. We have to really, not only from a waste perspective, but also from a litter perspective. So if we can all of a sudden really find a technology that really helps us achieve that, that's essentially where we're heading on that one. This Biofusion pilot program started a couple of years ago. I believe we started in December of 2022. The program has been accepted very, very well by the community. And actually, we're essentially generating a lot more plastic than what we can essentially process at this point in time until the facilities is put in place in operation at the Los Reales Sustainability Campus. So with that in mind, we looked at relieving some of those pinpoints for us, and that's when we started reaching out, or they actually started reaching out as a solution to have the Renew program. And the program is essentially, they're part of the chemical, they're partnered with Reynolds and also Dow Chemicals, really to develop and markets for the how to recycle plastics. They're actually are operating in 7 states. So the way it traditionally works is you essentially go buy a box of bags, the orange bags. You then fill them up with that hard to recycle plastics. And then you would essentially place that bag into your traditional recycling bin, blue bin. And then we would collect it as your traditional recycling program. Once it gets into the facility, the processor facility, the recycling facility, then that bag is essentially segregated from the rest of the material. It is essentially baled, and then it is then shipped directly to Have to Renew for their ultimate market use. We have tried to pursue that same type of model, but our current facility needs some improvements, needs some enhancements. They still have some questions about really how the processing would go, some of the retrofits that they would need to really install at their facility, and really what is really the long-term commitment, not only from the city, but really from the Have to Renew, really to make sure that it's a viable business option for them. So we continue to have those discussions. And so alternative, what we ended up doing is really just deploying additional roll-offs at various sites to make sure that we can collect the Have to Renew bags. Also, over a year ago, we needed to ensure that we can test the material. So really put it at play, and we deployed a few projects. One of the biggest ones we deployed was really the construction of the dumpster enclosure. And so it essentially, the top picture shows really in terms of how the blocks look like, and then what was really the end product at the end of the day. Today, that facility it's operating as it was intended. We haven't had no issues from a construction perspective. And so I think it's really a project that we can demonstrate that it has some uses in terms of how that technology can be deployed and how it can be used. The council approved an agreement with Bifusion where the city would incentivize essentially the relocation or add an additional facility from their California facility, establish a facility here in Tucson, very much in line with the council's intent and policy direction for zero waste perspective, carbon neutrality at the Los Reales Sustainability Campus. So it's really facilitating their relocation to Tucson or expansion to Tucson, but also really building a facility where they would be operating here in Tucson and really just creating more of a circular economy solution, pretty much in line again with the zero waste goals and the ultimate intent of the land use at the Los Reales Sustainability Campus. That facility is programmed to process roughly 200 tons of plastic a month. So we had some delays in terms of really getting the facility up and running. Reason for it is obviously one of the main issues is really supply chain issues, electric gears, getting all the stuff programmed. So it took us a little bit of time really to get it going. We believe, or our goal is really to have this facility fully functional by the first quarter of 2026. As of today, we have over 400 bales of material stored at the Los Reales Sustainability Campus. So that really goes to show that the residents of Tucson or the Tucson metropolitan area residents really are very interested in the program, and so we're essentially again generating more material than what we can process. So just to give you a very high level number, we're roughly receiving about 20 tons of hard to recycle plastics, and our capabilities or Bifusion's capabilities at the moment are about 10 tons a month, and it's because we're not the only customer that is trying to use this program. So it's really trying to maximize really the processing of that. Obviously, once this facility is up and running in Tucson, then we would have a much better possibility to process those materials as we move on. So what have we learned? Okay, so one of the things, it was introduced as a pilot. Still, we call it a pilot, even though it's no longer a pilot. It's really more of a formal program. But we'll call it formal once the facility is up and running. And it was really, again, very well supported by the community. One of the things that we, when we initiated the program, was really just focus on residential waste, household waste, pretty much in line with the Have to Renew program. But as it became to be very, very popular, then we, and obviously Bifusion can support that, is how can we expand really the reuse a lot of the plastics that are being generated more at the commercial and industrial level. What ended up happening is our pancake mix got a little bit messed up. And what I mean by that is, if the primary Bifusion processing is only is primarily to recycle household non-recyclable plastics, the infusion of commercial and industrial waste, there's a small percentage could be absorbed into the system, but when you start really altering the composition and percentage of the plastics, it really just became to be very difficult. Really, if all of a sudden we're comparing, just to give you put things to perspective, is if at first we were talking about food containers, bread bags, chips, in terms of the non-recyclable plastics and straws, all of a sudden the other plastic we're getting is auto parts. Okay, and or really getting big sheets of PVC or vinyl that essentially that really ended up really creating more of a challenge on processing the material. Some of the materials certainly could be shredded, certainly could be really made into a smaller component that it could be put into the Bifusion system. But obviously, we're not set up, we're not equipped, not only in terms of the city, nor Bifusion really to be able to do that. So it really became to be challenging that it really transformed into an all plastic solution when it really is not an all plastic solutions. And so there's limitations, and I think we need to understand that, not only in terms of the materials that could be collected, it could be processed, but really finally the ultimate use of that material as it moves through the market. We are still seeing a good percentage of contamination, which is not any different than our traditional recycling program. 25% of that, of what we collect is considered to be contaminated material, and it's a combination that we still use that roll-up bin as a trash bin, one, and then two is still continue to really bring a lot of materials that are really outside of the spirit and intent of the Have to Renew program or the Bifusion program. Again, I touching base on in terms of the Have to Renew program, the city made a commitment to the Have to Renew folks really to incorporate it into our hard to recycle programs. Again, reason being is we knew that we were generating a lot of plastic material. We knew that essentially Bifusion had specific capabilities on processing the plastics. The material that we're getting did not meet the parameters of Bifusion, nor it really met the parameters of the Have to Renew program. So we said, let's draw a line in the sand. As of July 1st of 2024, let's really transition really to the Have to Renew bag. There's pros and there's cons, just like anything else that we do. And the primary reason for that was, one, we have to limit the amount of plastics that are being thrown into those roll-offs to make sure that they meet the spirit and intent of the Have to Renew as well as the Bifusion building block. Then the other reason for it is really from a financial perspective is really once we essentially collect those bags essentially would be baled, and essentially Have to Renew would pay for the processing of partially the processing and baling of that material, as well as really transported to the end markets. So currently the city is really absorbing all the cost of collecting, all the cost of baling, and all the cost of transport, and the cost of really just managing that material. So when we have not been since July, we have been in a position really to bale enough Have to Renew bags and shipped, and for that material to be shipped to the end markets. The focus is, this is really program is intended for residential customers. Really, the use of the Have to Renew bags program is still, it's in the short term, medium term, and long term, the most viable option, as essentially Biofusion sets up and operates here in Tucson. Most likely, they will essentially begin to make contacts with a lot of the plastic generators here in Tucson and be able to provide more of a boutique, a special service to those companies as they move forward. Biofusion and Have to Renew have been partners for a long, long time, and this is really just as another opportunity really to have more folks that are interested in really on the reuse of the plastic material into essentially a facility that the city is very interested in really facilitating and ensuring that essentially that program is not only up and running beyond a pilot program, it really becomes to be sustainable and obviously create the case that this is really the best way to move forward. So as we move forward, our goal is really to continue to educate the public, educate essentially the benefits of really the program. We are certainly cognizant that this is not the perfect solution, because ultimately the perfect solution would be is that we should be generating a lot of that plastic material. We know that we can't, to some extent, we as individual consumers can have control of that, and I think we're having a difficult time doing that, because I think one of the things that gets on the way is our own personal convenience. But if we were to make some changes personally, very incremental changes, I think we can make some drastic changes overall. Still, kind of the plastic market is pretty strong, and the production of plastic material is going to be pretty strong, and most of that is still the virgin material prices for plastic it's really very, very, very low as compared to reused or polymers. Really, ideally is once we essentially have the facility up and running, continue essentially with the messaging, possibly really continue to move it from a drop-off service really to either you put it on the recycling bin or maybe possibly create some sort of a boutique on-demand or appointment-based service or curbside to pick up those hard-to-recycle plastics. So that's and again, the message is we just can't continue to accept really just any plastics whatsoever. They got to meet the parameters, and in order for us to do that, in order for really to meet the spirit of intent, we got to continue with that focus, so that way they can be really transformed into a different product using the Have to Renew in the Biofusion project moving forward. So today we have essentially 5 drop-off locations distributed really citywide. So that continues to be an opportunity. And also, I know some residents in some areas get really frustrated. They get full pretty easily or pretty fast. We try to keep as much as we can getting service, but sometimes over the weekend, it's challenging really to service them. We service them on Saturday, Monday morning, they're already full. And so those are some of the things that we continue to pursue on how we best service those containers and really keep and deploy additional roll-off containers for those locations. With that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Okay, Heidi, did you have anything to add?
Heidi in our attendees list. So Madam Vice Chair, if you'd like to open it up for questions.
Does anyone have questions?
in the room.
Yeah, hi. That was a really very helpful, detailed explanation. We see bifusion stories in the news, and you gave us a much more upfront look into the program. I'm curious about contamination. I've done work in plastics recycling, and contamination can be everything from mixing thermoset plastics, which are, you know, like epoxy type things that don't melt, with thermoplast plastics like polyethylene. But contamination could also be food residue, like we saw one of your slides showed typical garbage, like from McDonald's covered with ketchup. Is bifusion able to accommodate consumer contamination from food products? Or tell me a little bit about the contamination issue.
So very, very high level, I think we can all have a different definition of what contamination may look like. And I think that's really where the challenge is. So if you have a container, and this is really, it's very hard to explain what we mean by contamination. So if you have ketchup residue on a container, that's no problem. Okay, it's really bifusion has the capabilities really to ensure that essentially by vapor and pressure that really doesn't become to be an issue on that. It is different that in what we call food residue. Am I talking about have eaten hamburger or pieces of pizza? Well, that is different. So that's when we essentially the level of contamination comes in, and that's where the difference is really trying to infuse common sense and be able to say, yeah, that's fine if you have some residue, but just not any major, I would say, food items in that contamination. Your initial thought in terms of really the plastics, obviously, there's a gazillion types of plastics, and they vary not only in terms of the chemical composition, but in terms of also their sizes. So again, to start off kind of small at a small scale is focuses right now is let's look at consumer products that essentially that we could reuse. And then later on, we could start looking at really commercial generators and industrial generators, more of an individual basis. And so most recycling facilities are not equipped or not suited really to process commercial industrial waste. So most of them, I would say it was 99.9% of all facilities are just geared towards processing your traditional consumer products.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. And Kimberly, I see that your hand is up.
Yeah, I have another question about contamination. Are you looking into potential contaminants that may leach out of these building blocks you're using? And are these approved for all sorts of construction, or what are the limitations, if any?
So that's more a bifusion question in terms of really, they're in the process of really obtaining all the various, some approvals already obtained, some of the approvals from various building organizations in terms of what the capabilities and what are the parameters of that product. And so leaching, it's one of those things that needs to be addressed and needs to be looked at, and what is the ultimate use for that block. So there was a second part of that question. I just don't recall. So leaching is obviously something that needs to be addressed and needs to be looked at from getting approval as a building material, building block material. So again, as pointed out, some approvals have been obtained. There's in terms of really for the moment as a replacement for a CMU concrete block. I don't think we're to that level at this point in time. I think there is some uses, as I pointed out, like screen walls, stuff like that. I think that's on the works. And I think to address really the leaching, there's two things that have been applied. One is really more like a rhino type of Kevlar type of coating that is applied to make sure that there's really that the plastic's not exposed, and or really essentially stucco as well. So there is from a long-term perspective in leachate, there is a requirement that the blocks need to be sealed in its ultimate configuration.
And I'm curious, is the Kevlar virgin material used to encase and coat the recycled or reused plastic? And thereby you're creating a demand for new plastic, which I find problematic.
Again, from our perspective, it's really our focus is really just finding that alternative use in building that block. In terms of the ultimate use of the block, we're not too in tune with that, and that's something that we're leaving that to Bifusion really to take care of that and figure that out. And in terms of really the coatings, there's multiple options out there. But in terms of really the additional generation of plastic to make the Kevlar, then that's really something that it's really quite frankly beyond the scope of what we're looking at that in our area of responsibility.
All right, maybe just have given the time, just time for one more quick question. So Jessica, I see that your hand's up.
Hi, Carlos. So mine is more of a technical question and more of like a everyday resident kind of question. So something struck me as you were talking. So as a everyday resident, does it make sense for me as a person to like go to the store and buy one of those orange bags and like I would like rinse out my ketchup containers and like rinse out the milk out of my milk carton and then try and throw it in the recycle bin. And I still think I should do that, but should I now start trying to find those orange bags and throw everything that I'm trying to recycle into those orange bags and then put it in my recycle bin so that it starts going to those blocks? Is that the intention that we start doing that as residents?
So no, thank you for the question. I think that's an excellent perspective. So what we really are asking the public in general is, if you have a water bottle, if you have a milk jug, if you have a yogurt container, anything that is a plastic container, for you to really, as you pointed out, rinse it out. Don't have to really go in there and deeply clean it. It's just want to eliminate that. Any major residue of ketchup or mustard, whatever it is. We certainly want really for those items to be placed in your regular recycling bin. Reason for it is those products have a lot of market value. And when we essentially separate those materials, segregate those materials, they become to be very, very valuable. And so they have so for a traditional water bottle, right now, a ton of that material, and I know it takes a ton of really plastic bottles to make a ton, but the value of that is about, right now is about $1,100 a ton, okay? So it's huge. Same thing goes with milk, the milk jugs. So there is that beneficial use or really reusing that product. And I think one of the things that sometimes we get our lingo messed up. Okay, so we said recycle, and a lot of times we think that water bottle is going to turn into another water bottle. Most likely it isn't. Okay, and it's going to be either turn into now a detergent bottle or a shampoo bottle. Okay, but it's going to be reused. So to answer your question is we certainly want for all residents to have a recycling bin to continue to put all those high valuable recyclables into the recycling bin, into the blue bin. But if you have in our blue bin, you can't put your bed bags, you can't put your chips, you can't put your straws, you can't put your styrofoam. And so those are the things that essentially when we buy that bag, that have the Renew bag, we can place those items into that bag. Okay, so you're doing two things. One, you're eliminating the amount of contamination that essentially that the city ends up essentially paying for that contamination when it's processed at the recycling facility. So you're helping us with that. Okay. Then the other thing that you put it into that bag, you're essentially are helping us really find an alternative use for those products that otherwise would be landfill. So the value of the bag is not that we just want to create more plastic really to deal with the hard to recycle plastics. It really becomes to be that bag, becomes to be a mode of transportation, becomes to be a container. Okay. And then that container essentially then segregated, separated, and turn into a different product. And that material is obviously not going to turn into another plastic straw. It's not going to turn into another bread bag, but it's going to be turned into either a plank, a bench plank. It could be turned into a pallet. It could be turned into a paver. So there's a lot of those uses, and that's really where the spirit and intent of the program is. Let's divide and conquer. Let's maximize the use of our recycling products, put them into the blue bin, and then let's divert this waste, this special waste, and turn it into a different product. So hopefully I answer your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you for clarifying that.
All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, unfortunately, just given the timing, and we'll have to, Madam Vice Chair, I think move on here in a minute to the next presentation. I do see that Heidi has joined though. So Heidi, if you have anything for like 30 seconds that you'd like to add, thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for the timing confusion. Carlos, I think, summed it up perfectly. We're very excited to make our home in Tucson and bring some of this industrial repurposing capabilities to local community. The Hefty Renew program is one that we've worked with for many, many years. It's a very effective program, and I'm glad to hear that the community is starting to embrace it. Thank you so much for letting us give you an update, and I look forward to speaking with you at a later date. Thank you.
Heidi, and these presentations will be posted online, and as you can see on the slide, there is some contact information for both the speakers. So Carlos, thank you very much for presenting, and thank you, Heidi, for joining, and Madam Vice Chair, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Copper World Natural and Cultural Heritage Impacts Update. And this will be given by Laura Berglund of Earth Justice and Austin Nunez, Chairman of the San Javier District Tohono O'odham Nation. Laura Berglund is a senior attorney at Earth Justice's Tribal Partnerships Program, where she represents tribes and indigenous communities in natural resources and cultural resources matters. Prior to joining Earth Justice, Laura was the Attorney General for the Pascayaki tribe and worked in-house for the Tohono O'odham Nation. I do have the bio here.
Did you find the bio?
I did, but
I can read it too if that's easier.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, Austin. Austin is chairman of the San Javier District, one of the 11 legislative districts of the Tohono O'odham Nation since 1987. He presides over district council and community meetings and is in charge of the district's governmental operations. Prior to becoming district chairman, Austin worked for 2 different Native American community development programs, first serving as assistant director for an international community development organization serving 19 Native American nations in Arizona. Secondly, as assistant director for the Tohono O'odham Nations, formerly Papago Tribe of Arizona, community development program. He served for 2 years in each of these positions. He was appointed in 2022 to the U.S. Governmental Advisory Committee, providing guidance to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Austin has 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren. Well, welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair. This is Laura Berglund. I'm going to start and then I'll turn it over to Chairman Nunez after I sort of set the background. I really appreciate you all having us here today. I wanted to just flag, first of all, you'll be hearing about some of the Don Otham concerns, but we also have the Pasquayaki tribe and the Hopi tribe that have been involved in this issue since its inception. And they obviously have a lot of interest in the area. So I wanted to flag that. And sorry, I also wanted to mention, if you wanted to learn more, there's a film available. It's embedded here in the slides if you have access to that. It was produced by a local filmmaker here in Tucson, Francis Causey. And it's focused on the Don Otham and the Rosemont project, sort of the predecessor to Copper World. It's about 20 minutes long, so not super long. If you want to learn more, available here on the slides or on Francis Causey's website, franciscauseyfilms.com. Sorry, the slides are, oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Slides are a little bit laggy for me. Sorry about that. And I know that you had a presentation at your June meeting about this project and some of the pending ADUQ permits by county staff. And I apologize, I wasn't able to make that. So I was out of the country at the time. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but I think it's important to sort of understand that there is a fair amount of history here. So this, excuse me, the project originated as the Rosemont Copper Project back in 2007. When the company Hudbay first submitted its mine plan of operation to the Coronado National Forest. So scoping for that project occurred in 2008, and that's when the Don Otham Nation got involved, and then subsequently the Hopi tribe and Pasquayaki tribes. So I wanted to highlight that the nation's been involved and fighting this Rosemont Copper Project and now what's called Copper World for over 15 years, and Chairman Nunez has been involved throughout that entire process. So just a little background on sort of all the cases that have been involved here, the litigation. First of all, the mining law case. So the mining law, just in a nutshell, could have a whole hour-long presentation on that, but it allows mining companies to occupy federal land on which there are valuable minerals that have been found, as well as on non-mineral federal land for mill sites, essentially free of charge. And so this is a mining law from 1872, largely unchanged today, and it grants those companies a right to occupy public lands where they've discovered a valuable mineral deposit. So at the former Rosemont site, Hudbay had some patented mining claims, which essentially make the lands private lands, and then some unpatented mining claims that sort of went around the outside of those patented claims where the pit was going to be located. And what they had proposed to do was to mine out the pit and then dump the mining waste on the unpatented claims, therefore burying about almost 2,500 acres of national forest land in waste rock. And they hadn't established that valuable minerals were on those unpatented claims. So the tribes, as well as some conservation groups, challenged that decision by the Forest Service, and they won at the district court level. And that was then appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which was affirmed at the Ninth Circuit in a 2-1 decision, finding that Hudbay's mining claim that it was undisputable that there had been no valuable minerals found on those unpatented claims. And so they were not allowed to move forward. That case has been called one of the most significant federal court decisions on federal mining law in several decades. So that case that's the law of the land currently. I do want to mention there was also a Clean Water Act case During that case, the company vacated the permit that they were seeking, a Section 404 permit, and so the judge ruled that the lawsuit was moot. And then there was an endangered species case by the Center for Biological Diversity about designation of critical habitat, and were related to the jaguar critical habitat decision. And so while these cases were all ongoing, Hudbay had purchased private land totaling approximately 4,500 acres to support an operation on private lands on the west and east sides of the Santa Ritas, and renamed that whole project Copper World. And so that project has two phases. Phase one is a standalone operation on private lands on patented mining claims, and would be a 20-year mine life. So that's what they're starting with average copper production of about 86,000 tons. There's 4 pits there. And then phase 2 would be what was sort of the former Rosemont Copper Project occurring on federal land, and would extend the mine life to 44 years with annual copper production at about 101,000 tons. So all that was sort of going on. And then this fourth case that I wanted to mention, Arizona Land Department right-of-way case. This was a case brought by the Save the Scenic Santa Ritas and Farmers Investment Corporation. It was a suit against the State Land Department when they approved their right-of-way across the Santa Rita Experimental Range. There was an allegation of a violation of the open meetings law. They were successful in that case, and back in September of this year. And then back in October, the Arizona State Lands Board of Appeals tried to rectify that open meeting law violation by reissuance the right away. And then these same plaintiffs challenged that approval again, saying that they didn't rectify that issue, and that case is still pending. So I wanted to talk a little bit and sort of set the stage for what Chairman Nunez is going to talk about. So Santa Rita's is referred to in the Autumn language as Chuiduag, and it's a traditional cultural property or landscape, which is eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. Because it's association with cultural practices, not just of the Autumn people, but some of the other tribes that I mentioned as well. So I'm going to turn it over now to Chairman Nunez.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So the whole range of Chuiduag is a traditional cultural place for our people. And if these mines do proceed forward, they would certainly will impact the cultural sites that have been that are known there and that are unknown. And our people have been in this area since we say time immemorial, and we've covered this vast area, which is now southern Arizona and then now northern Mexico. And so the Chuiduag has been used for thousands of years by us and our ancestors for harvesting materials for basket making, for plant medicines, food, clays and minerals for the manufacture of pottery, and as a place for prayer, vision quest, and for our warriors to cleanse themselves after battle. The project will definitely scar and destroy large portions of the cultural and natural landscape. For the Rosemont portion, when we were dealing with them with Hudbay, now Hudbay, there are 500 cultural resources that would be destroyed if the mine was to be developed. And these archaeological sites span a period from 2000 BC to 1200 AD. And they include the late Archaic period through most of the Hohokam period. These sites are the resting places of our ancestors. And 200 burials of Hohokam sites were recovered during the excavations at Rosemont And these were eventually repatriated to us after being stored in the Arizona State Museum for examination and research. And we ourselves here in the Santa Barbara District, we passed resolution 0122-03 opposing Copper World to protect the cultural resources on the western slope of Chilliwack. And their Hohokam site has now been discovered, which was previously unknown to anyone. And there were also human remains there. And Herfano Butte is close, is west of Copper World and east of the Santa Rita Experimental Range. So that would also be affected by the right-of-way that Copper World has planned to construct in that area. And so we definitely will continue to be working with the Save the Scenic Santa Rita's organization to oppose both mines. So that's the information that I wanted to present to all of you, and thank you for this opportunity to do so, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you both very much. Questions?
Sorry, there was just one other thing I wanted to mention, sort of as an update, I think from your June presentation. Subsequent to that presentation, the Aquifer Protection Permit has been granted. And from the time I think you had your last presentation, the Class 2 air quality permit from ADEQ has been released, and that's currently pending, and we would expect that to come out in the next few months. So I just wanted to add that. Sorry about that.
Does anyone have questions? I
Your
see
hand is up. You're trying to speak.
Abigail? There you go.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, both of you, for that presentation. That was really good background. I think a lot of us heard a lot about this issue from different areas. I do want to just add in my role in Cuba County DQ that there may be other parts of the permitting process going ahead for the current mine that involve roadway dust. And it is an issue that we're trying to figure out as jurisdiction over it and collect air quality data. And for people who are, interested, concerned residents in the area, purple air monitors are low-cost air monitors that people can get to install on their own. And it goes into a crowdsourced citizen science database, so we can keep an eye on air quality issues, and people can do that on their own. So we were looking at the maps, and there's not a lot of data out there. There aren't a lot of members, so I did just erase that and say that we're still just looking into these permits. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Any other questions or comments?
Feel free to raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself as well. Jump in, but.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh, hit it one more time. Oh, yeah, just hit the button. There you go.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me? Good. My name's Charles Stack. I've spoken in public on this mine many times. I've written articles in the paper, and I've objected to this mine for a number of reasons, everything from dust to construction to water consumption. But are there any possible middle grounds between Hudbay and the Tohono O'odham people and the community? There's more advanced mining techniques that could be deployed. I teach at the University of Arizona as a guest lecturer, And open pit mining is a blunt instrument. Is there any possibility of discussion that could occur, or do you think there's too much bad medicine between all parties?
Thank you for the question. For myself, I want to say that yeah, there's a lot of ill feelings towards Hudbay from our community because we're the closest to them, and we definitely see already the scar that's left from the other mine adjacent to it, and then we also have experienced copper mining here in our community, which has the future potential to destroy, well, not destroy, but contaminate our water source here with sulfates, but we're prepared to deal with that. And I think that like everyone has said in the past and continues to say, that water is necessary for us as desert communities. And if they're going to disrupt the flow of the underground systems, it's going to possibly mean less water, groundwater for us. And unless Hudbay can find a different water source other than the groundwater and any of the existing committed CAP water to the region here, and they can find a way to fill up the hole if they dig a hole, and then to get the earth back into what it was formerly in its natural state. I know that's a big ask, but if they can do all that, perhaps there might be a way to possibly move forward. I realize too, we all need these minerals for our cell phones, our computers, but there has to be a way to have more responsible mining going forward for the whole world. So that's my response.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Nunez.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hey, Paula.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see me well, so I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
That's
I
okay.
couldn't.
No, that's okay. I was just asking if there was time. I was trying to connect the dots with the June presentation that we had on Copper World from the county. And I recall some of our members saying they had never heard of the project before. And so I'm wondering if either of our presenters could mention, just kind of reflect on if you've noticed some confusion out there with the change from the name, like Rosemont and Hudbay to Copper World, and if there has been hopefully some increased awareness since our June presentation from additional jurisdictions. And I have a second part to that question, but I'll start with that.
Sure, I can start. Unfortunately, I didn't hear the June presentation, but I had coordinated. We were actually supposed to present at an earlier meeting, so I had saw Mac's slides before. But yeah, I think there is a lot of confusion that Copper World is effectively Rosemont plus, right? It's what Rosemont would be effectively their phase 2. They're just putting the project that would occur on federal lands on the back burner. And they're going to focus on private lands first. So it's a much larger project. So yeah, I don't think that the general public kind of understands that this is still Rosemont, but it's also then other claims on private lands. So yeah, I think there's certainly an effort to get the word out on that. I don't know, Chairman Nunez, did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Yes, I agree with what Laura just stated, but I would urge everyone to look at the Save the Scenic Senoritas website and, pass it along to your colleagues and friends, because they are at the forefront as well. And really for us, we're glad that they're doing so. They have a lot of information from the past and then currently with regard to the air quality permit as well.
The follow-up question was sort of for the whole committee. I recall many years ago, I think the county and maybe the city both put out like declarations of concern about Rosemont, and I didn't know if those have been renewed or if any other jurisdictions have made similar statements. Given name changes, given changes in court cases, if that kind of statement has been updated. We might not have the right people to answer, but if anyone knows.
Not seeing anyone online, maybe a follow-up. Unless if anyone had anything to add. Thanks, Mead. Madam Vice Chair, I'm not seeing any other hands up online or in the room. I don't know if anyone else had any last thoughts or questions.
Okay, well, I want to thank you both, Chairman Nunez and Laura, for giving us some very thoughtful information. It's important to know these effects that these undertakings have. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, next is the EPAC Top Environmental Issues List for 2025. Okay. So PAG staff is going to present the final draft of the Top Environmental Issues List for 2025, the who's who in environmental issues. And that will serve as a guide for topics to be addressed in the upcoming year. And let's see, this is an action item. So we will be voting on this after the presentation. And I think, Hannah, you're presenting?
I am.
All right.
There we go.
The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair. And hello again, everyone. So for this agenda item, I'm going to just present and we'll discuss the final draft of the EPAC Top Environmental Issues List for 2025. All right. So I did cover kind of the provide this overview and information at our October meeting, but just for some additional context and overview again. So this issues list is something that is developed annually by EPAC in coordination with PAG staff every year. So it includes a broad range of priority issues for the region. And the issues also form the basis for meeting topics throughout the year. So you'll see many of these reflected in the presentations that we bring to the committee, and we try and get to as many as we can during the course of the year. The list also informs the area-wide water quality management or 208 plan, those annual administrative updates. And it's really helpful to inform planning documents and encourage regional collaboration in our area. All right, so this slide is just kind of an overview of the process with how we got to the final draft that's being presented today. So the final draft was included in the meeting materials online. It was posted on Tuesdays. Hopefully you all had a chance to review and got the notification when it was posted. But back in September of this year, prior to our October meeting, that's when we sent the initial draft, or sorry, the approved 2024 issues list to members, just so folks could get refamiliarized with it, could have it, and just were able to review it before the meeting. And in October, that is when we solicited for formal feedback and comments from EPAC and subcommittee members. Any updates to that already approved list. So comments, feedback we received, as well as updates by PAG staff, those were crafted into a preliminary draft that was sent to EPAC and subcommittee members in November for another review, another chance to provide feedback and comments on that preliminary draft. So anything additional that we received, we tried to include that in the final draft document, which is being presented at this meeting today, and again is posted online. So this final draft reflects updated text from the 2024 issues list, new content based on member feedback, as well as PAG updates by staff. And just as a reminder, this is an action item to recommend approval of the final draft of the EPAC's top environmental issues list for 2025. And this slide just shows the organization and format of the final draft. So it did carry forward the format from the 2024 issues list in terms of priority categories and issues. So there's still the priority categories for equity and environmental justice, healthy environment, regional resiliency, and the associated issues under those categories. So the format remained consistent in that regard. So for this slide, I just want to point out some of the key updates. And on Tuesday, kind of at the end of the day, I did send out a list with some highlights and comments, trying to show the main updates that were sent, because that might be hopefully a little bit easier to maybe discern the updates that were made for the final draft, and also included the approved 2024 list in that email. So we had just a few things that I wanted to cover. So the introduction was expanded to clarify the role and purview of PAG related to federal regulations and grant funding sources, and what the agency can allocate resources to. Detail was also added for water quality related to historic landfills, additional strategies to improve air quality. So some detail was added for that. We added detail for PAG planning projects. So this was to reflect current projects underway related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Added detail for regulations for water quality to reflect current conditions. Solid waste planning, including PAG's role as the regional planning agency for that. We did receive some updates for the invasive species information. So those are reflected. Additional detail for water supply and climate variability to reflect current conditions. And during the last cycle, where we updated the list, there was an interest in the committee to actually include specific accomplishments for our region. So we did include some specific regional accomplishments in the list. And those were pointed out in that highlighted document. All right, so I know that was a pretty short presentation, but that's all I have to share. So I'm happy to take any questions and can, of course, open it up for discussion. And again, this is an action item to recommend approval of the final draft of EPAC's top environmental issues list for 2025. Thank you.
Okay, I see Christina has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Well, I have a number of questions, but I'll start with question one. Since wildlife connectivity is a key element of transportation, how do we ensure that priority locations are listed in the PAG long range plan, the RMAP, so that they can be programmed, especially if RTA monies are adopted by voters? RTA projects need to be identified in the RMAP, as far as I'm understanding that. If I'm incorrect, please advise. But how do we make sure that wildlife corridors and connectivity, and specifically locations, priority locations, are programmed into that? That's my first question.
All right, so sorry, because we're asking specifically about the long range plan, the RMAP.
Right, and I'm
How
wondering
those-
how do we ensure that priority locations for connectivity are included into that?
Sure. So as part of that process, we do look at the locations of the projects that were submitted by jurisdictions in relation to environmentally sensitive areas. But yeah, would be the jurisdictions who would submit for those projects to be included in the RMAP. And yes, you are correct that any RTA Next project, all of those are also included in the RMAP.
Okay, but when we talk about connectivity, and I do have a couple of suggestions for that area, you talk about in that text, identified wildlife corridors. Well, wildlife corridors are constantly being identified as more data is being gathered. So if you're talking about areas that have previously been identified, for instance, in the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan, those were just 6 very broad, general regions. They were not specific. And then since that time, there have been more specific focused studies and given areas. Many of those were done by Arizona Game and Fish. That came up with a draft for Pima County in particular that identified many more corridors. I don't know if you're using all of these sources that were identified through the subcommittee from the RTA 2006 Wildlife Linkages Subcommittee. Since all of that has disappeared from the website, I'm not sure what data you're using.
Yeah, we can look into seeing if there's those additional. Oh, sorry, Jeanette, you have your hand up, but go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Christina, thanks for the question. And Hannah, I'm happy to take a stab at this. Yeah, so the long range plan right now is just showing that we anticipate there'll be money available for those linkage projects in the long range plan. So what that'll do is make sure that those projects are eligible for inclusion as we move them into the programming stages. But we have not done any location selection. That would probably happen later on once the RTA money, if that does get approved, that would go through a process by which we would select the individual projects and, where the money would be spent. But the way we have it set up right now, just make sure that those projects can be funded moving forward. But similar to other categorical dollars, we don't have to select the location specifically right now for those to be built.
Yes, I understand, Jeanette, but I mean, we spent a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money from the RTA to identify and further refine locations and areas of concern. And I'm wondering what happened to those studies and whether you're utilizing them or not.
At this point, we're just putting the categorical funding in the long range plan, and then the decisions on where those investments will go will happen at a later time through the RTA committees. So, the information is still there, and
where is the information that, excuse me for interrupting, but where is it? Because it's not on the website anymore. I'm just curious what happened to it.
I'm sure the RTA staff has it, but I can't pinpoint, exactly where to find it. I could, look for you, but, those decisions as to where the money is going to be spent on which projects will happen, through committees in the future. So I don't think they'll completely just solely rely on work that happened in the past. I mean, that would have to be reexamined and those decisions be made by the committee members at that time. Similar to how, we fund all sorts of different projects in the different categories.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. So another comment I wanted to make is you talk about wildlife relying on undeveloped natural corridors to migrate. It needs to be migrate through because what we're talking about here are corridors. So it's not, anyway, I would suggest that you amend the text to say migrate through, comma, rest, comma, forage for food sources, and maintain genetic diversity. And then in the areas for wildlife movement, part of the text, which is in the second sentence. I would suggest that you amend that text to say potential and identified wildlife corridors, because those are changing as development occurs. Certain areas are precluded, other areas are still available. And so we need to be current with that and with our partners at Arizona Game and Fish and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So that's my comment regarding connectivity. There's two other things I wanted to bring up. One is that I had suggested under healthy environments that both light pollution and noise pollution be issues of concern due to the fact that they affect human health and well-being as well as wildlife. There is an Arizona revised statute 49-1101 through 49-1106. And in that light pollution statute, it's very clearly expressed that it is absolutely okay for jurisdictions, especially jurisdictions who rely on astronomy as one of their economic engines. 1106 states, the provisions of this article are cumulative and supplemental and shall not apply within any county, city, or town which by ordinance or resolution has adopted provisions restricting light pollution, which are equal to or more stringent than the provisions of this chapter. There is currently a multi-jurisdictional committee considering changes to the outdoor lighting code. And I have submitted documentation from the June 2023 special issue of Science Magazine on this issue, light pollution, as well as other more recent articles documenting the need to revise these. And I think from a public health and safety standpoint, and I speak now as a retired registered nurse, this is really important. I don't understand why that was just eliminated by staff, but I would suggest that it be reinstituted. Regarding noise control, there are a number of different issues that can be better addressed if the public and staff and jurisdictions are aware of them. There is a Title 23 Highways Part 772 in the ARS that talks regarding noise control in particular, was amended in May of 2017. And again, this issue can be handled and can be improved upon. Regarding environmental concerns, for example, where there are wildlife crossings, it is good to have sound walls because noise affects wildlife and it affects them utilizing those areas. And when we spend tax dollars on those structures, we want to make sure that they are effective. So I would like to suggest that both noise and light pollution be put back into the issues list for 2025. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, but are we making these as motions?
I would so move that both the light pollution and noise pollution be reinstated into the PAG 2025 list of environmental concerns.
I'll second that.
Had some additional discussion from members. So that's appropriate. We can maybe open that up for some additional comments. So Chuck, I know
on the light and noise pollution aspect, or just in general on the list?
This would be specific to the motion, which is putting back into the list both light and noise pollution. And I'm happy to work on text with staff to bring it back to the committee.
Support that. One thing is that the Air Force Base in Tucson is going to be hosting supersonic fighters, and they're going to be engaging in low-level supersonic flight over areas that are very sensitive for migration. One of them is the Ironwood Forest, just north of Oro Valley, and that has migration between the Ironwood Forest and the Saguaro Park, but we have bighorn sheep. We have a whole bunch of very critical animals that I'm in touch with some of the people, the not-for-profit at Ironwood. They're very concerned about the impact that low-level supersonic flight may have on that particular biome, as well as others in the area. So there's other things, of course. The light pollution is an excellent point, but I agree. I think it should be re-added.
And Chris, I know that there were additional comments related to other topics on the list. Would you like to withdraw your motion, go through the additional comments, and then include another motion?
We can certainly do that, Hannah, if you would prefer it. I have no problem waiting if there are other comments, certainly.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to go to Brendan has some comments from Saba in the room.
Yeah, I certainly have some comments on wildlife connectivity, but maybe if we could start with the first and then work our way down the list. And as folks have comments, then we can include them or just move on as necessary. To go up to equity and environmental justice, I've drafted comments on every one of these topics. And while SABA supports engaging underserved communities, it's crucial to recognize housing affordability and ensure that such prioritization does not result in disproportionate regulatory or financial burdens on housing development. Efforts to include community feedback should balance both environmental justice goals with the need for housing affordability. And we can stick on this topic and have conversation, and then move on. But I've got comments on every one of these topics.
I'm not seeing any.
Was there you said that was in the first paragraph?
These are just comments related to the items. And so I don't have, I can sit and draft line items to be incorporated, but just for consideration as we talk about this, every one of these topics have the opportunity for increased regulations. And as it pertains to all of these topics, looking at ways in which to incentivize and so forth.
Abigail, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, as to Brendan's comments, Brendan, did you submit them in writing already? Because I would love to read them before we move forward with decisions on them.
I do not have it in writing, but I can certainly repeat it as well.
Oh, so it's just the comments you said. I thought there might be more detail.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying.
So if you'd like me to read it again, I'm happy to.
I heard you, but if anybody else wants to hear it again.
Sure.
I have a question. Were these comments submitted during the comment period?
They were not. I was under the impression that this was an opportunity to both comment as well as vote on the agenda moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other hands up. So if you want to
Move forward.
Going with your comments, sure.
Okay. Under healthy environment and clean air, SAWA would like to see promoting strategies that incentivize alternative modes of transportation without imposing excessive costs or requirements on residential developments. Such examples would be offering grants or tax credits for EV charging stations and housing projects can be more effective than mandates. Moving on to clean water. We'd like to emphasize voluntary incentive-based solutions for water quality improvements, such as programs encouraging efficient water use in new developments, rather than additional regulatory compliance burdens. For solid waste reduction, we'd like to encourage collaboration with the private sector, including home builders, to explore innovative materials recycling programs. However, avoid implementing requirements that significantly increase construction costs without measurable environmental benefits.
Can
Under
you give me an
steward-
example of that one, please?
Sure. Again, this all comes down to increased regulations. So I mean, there's examples for all of these, and I'm happy to visit with you offline. These are just simple comments at this time. Under stewardship and enhancement, to advocate for clear guidelines on the definition and responsibilities around riparian stewardship to avoid legal ambiguities that could delay housing projects. For the comments under wildlife connectivity, while wildlife corridors are important, land use policies should balance conservation goals with housing needs. Again, we've got a significant housing affordability problem throughout our communities, and we recommend cost-effective solutions such as enhanced fencings or crossings on existing infrastructure before mandating new measures for developers. Again, on any one of these topics, I'm happy to have further discussion. Under regional resiliency, for resilient infrastructure, to support green stormwater infrastructure that offers multiple benefits, but stress that mandates for tree planting or other features in developments should come with funding support or tax incentives to offset costs on development. Under resilient economy, to advocate for a balanced approach to ecotourism and natural heritage preservation that does not limit potential land development opportunities critical for addressing such housing shortages. I'll continue. Repeat that one? Sure. To advocate for a balanced approach to ecotourism and natural heritage preservation that does not limit potential land development opportunities critical for addressing housing shortages. Under water reliability, to focus on collaborative planning to ensure equitable water access across sectors, emphasizing the importance of predictable policies for developers. To support water recycling technologies, but ensure that these do not result in undue financial hardships, again, on the housing industry that prevent housing affordability. And lastly, under climate variability, to encourage regional climate action plans that provide flexibility for developers to meet goals using innovative approaches. For example, incentivize energy efficient building designs and solar ready homes rather than mandating specific technologies or standards that increase construction costs and get passed on to the home buyers. Thank you.
Kimberly, looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, I would just like examples of the proposed regulations that Mr. Leon alluded to.
Certainly, there's environmental climate action regulations that we are currently going through right now with flood control to account for climate change, and now development is being incurred on significant costs such as culverts and additional drainage aspects that, once again, there's an increased cost that then gets passed on to development. And again, I'm happy to sit with you offline, but rather than looking at ways in which to regulate, just having a broader understanding of the scope of housing affordability needs within our community. That's the overall intent of this.
Well, I'd also like to point out the mandate that they have to protect people and property from severe storms and flooding. And so there does appear to be a need for additional discussion and education about these harms, because if a home becomes affordable for a person, but also a liability to the, for their life, and they risk losing it in the next big storm, that is also problematic. So I don't profess to be the most educated about this topic, but as a resident of this community, I strongly support plans and in investments in infrastructure that protect my property and my life.
Question I'm just emphasizing that there needs to be a balance, and that such an understanding should be implemented within this policy or within this agenda moving forward for the year. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks.
You have your hand up.
If I try to combine the different things you said, I think you said at the beginning that most of your comments are about providing flexibility, and considering incentives over mandates, but in balance with these environmental goals.
Absolutely. We're not coming out here in complete opposition. It's just an understanding that again, one citation that it goes to a national average. This was a study conducted by the National Association of Home Builders, and it certainly applies here locally as well. But on a national average, roughly 25% of all new home builds, the cost of those are directly attributed to government regulation and fees. And so when you look at housing affordability, to take into account such issues and comments that come up, just to take that into consideration is what we're asking for.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions from folks online?
Alexandra Chavez has her hand up.
Hi there. I appreciate the kind of finding that balance and merging our kind of balancing what we need to do for the environment, and then also having some understanding what SABA needs and the builders here, and then ultimately bridging that affordability aspect too. My question is for maybe Hannah and team. Do we need to decide on this, or is there a possibility to motion that we review Mr. Leon's additions and then provide comments for that? For those updates reflecting what SABA is looking to add.
So, Alex, yes, so we could do that. I know there's been a lot of discussion during this meeting on the list. So, yeah, we can certainly take those written comments, update the final draft for review by the committee, and we could bring it to the next meeting. And that was actually the process that we ended up following during the last update round. There was a lot of discussion, so there was a need to carry forward to another meeting.
Perfect. And so with that, if we could get a copy of the SABA's report that was referenced, and then I think that would be helpful in kind of making a motion, at least from my part, or that we can support those additions or comments.
Sounds good. Absolutely.
Miguel, you have your hand up?
Sorry, I think you called on me. I just want to clarify, I think we do still have a motion from Chris, although that may have been withdrawn, but I don't think the withdrawal was seconded. And I don't think we have a motion from Brendan. So if we are following our rules and we need motions for this, we should go forward on that. I'm prepared to vote on Chris's motion, not on Brendan's motion. And I think there's interest in seeing that in writing. So if we can just get some clarity on that, Hannah.
Yeah, Chris, if there was a motion to withdraw your motion, guess we could have a second on that.
I did not move to withdraw my motion. I just decided to wait until the conversation was over to go forward with it. So my motion is still on the floor as far as I'm concerned. If there's other comments or concerns regarding the list, I'm open to hearing those before my motion goes forward.
And I did second her motion. I did not second what you thought was withdrawal, which was not a withdrawal. So those motions are still on the table.
Well, hearing no more comments or concerns about the list, other than Alex's comment, and I think Mr. Leon is reading from some sort of text that he has prepared. So if he could submit that along with the copy of the report for further consideration, that would be helpful. But back to my motion. My motion was to reinstate what I had previously recommended during the comment period, which was that light pollution and noise pollution be issues of concern and be added to the list for 2025. Is there discussion on that?
Does anyone have any comments on that before we take a vote on that?
I have a question. So would that look like, since we don't have text, that would look like a motion to support adding that in, but then the vote on the final issues list would be separate, but it's more of an agreement that you want that in general added in? Or do you want to propose text right now?
I would propose to add it in, and I said previously, and I will reiterate that I am very happy to work on text. I have previously discussed this in other meetings where both light and noise pollution are potential adverse impacts to public health and safety, as well as wildlife. And so I think that I'm happy to work on text in that regard and work with staff regarding that so that we can vote on that at some future date in terms of the specifics.
Clarifies. Mhm.
So I think we should vote then on including those topics, and text will be worked out. This is just a vote to include those topics, not a vote for the entire list. Correct?
Yes, I'll call the question.
All in favor of adding these topics to the list to be worked
Aye.
out? All
Aye.
in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
I don't
Here.
think we've finished with the list.
No, this is just to add Christine's or Christina's, to add the topic
If it's
of,
just that specific topic,
yes,
I would support that.
yes, this is not a vote to accept the 2025 draft.
Draw that objection.
Hearing no other votes, the motion is passed.
Thank you. And then I guess I'll make a motion to amend the connectivity language to say migrate through, and also to suggest that the areas of wildlife movement potential and identified wildlife corridors also be added to that. And that's in the second sentence.
Second.
I think then that we are voting just on adding this language, this specific language, to the final draft. This is not a vote approving the final draft. All in favor of adding this language, say aye.
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 And aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes.
Hannah, I can get back to you with a written text to make it easier for you.
So much. We'll coordinate.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Thank you.
All right, so then, yeah, my understanding is that we've made those motions and then we can bring the final draft back for approval at our next meeting.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, there could be a motion to bring the item back for approval.
I so move.
And I think somebody may have to make that motion. That's.
I move that we delay voting on the final list for 2025 until our next meeting.
So moved, or I'm sorry, does anyone second?
I second.
All right, all in favor of postponing the vote on the final draft for the 2025 top environmental issues list for our next meeting, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you all very much for the discussion, and we will move forward to the next steps with this.
Good.
Okay, next we have an update from the Pima County Regional Wastewater Reclamation Advisory Committee. Alejandro Brejo, Arce.
Good morning, everyone. I'll try to be brief because I know we're short on time. So I became official to the RAC committee in February of 2024, and I serve as a PAC liaison. And for who don't, I guess it's you guys have what RAC means there. The RAC acts as an official advisory body to the Board of Supervisors, and we review, evaluate, and make recommendations to the Pima County Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department's financials. So during that meeting, we go over several items and we discuss monthly expense and revenue summaries. We talk about the meeting report from CWAC and Tucson water activities. And we also have our director, Jackson, typically provide an update on various department and policy updates, including the CAP, personnel, staffing, operational maintenance issues, and key performance indicators. I'm just gonna highlight some of these items that he talked about since I was there in February. And one of them is the Canoa Range sewer extension. This is a new sewer line that's gonna be installed in the south side of the county. And it's gonna be between the frontage road and I-19, and it's gonna be connecting two rest areas down there for new development. And it was brought up multiple times because we were negotiating where this location was gonna be. We were negotiating with ADOT. The other project that we discussed as well was Sahuarita Wastewater Reclamation Facility. So the department has been working closely with the town of Sahuarita on a potential partnership for a new co-owned water reclamation facility down in Sahuarita. And this is gonna benefit all the south area of the county as well. And lastly, we also talked about how the county has been struggling to fill in open positions since the market is very competitive, but they're working actively to address that issue. So in August 2024, Claire was elected the new chair of the committee, and Scott was elected the vice chair. And another topic we also talked about was the Royer Road wastewater reclamation facility. As many of you guys know, this was decommissioned in 2014 when Agua Nueva wastewater reclamation facility took over. And EPA came over and they conducted a brownfield remediation assessment in October of 2023 with the goal of determining the constraints of this facility and look for the best opportunities for its future development. So we talked about all the findings from that assessment, and also the department evaluated the facility because they have a new plan for it in the future. They wanted to look into a mixed use redevelopment involving public spaces, recreational areas, commercial ventures, research activities, and everything's gonna be aiming for economical growth. We're really excited for the future of that facility. There's a lot to be done for that, but we're still in the preliminary phases of what we're gonna be doing. Financially, we also spend a good amount of time reviewing financial reports, budgets, and other financial related topics. And one of the highlights from that area is we're looking into increasing the rates in the beginning of fiscal year 2025 and 2026. There's going to be an annual increase of 3% for sewer utility fees and an annual increase of 1.7% for sewer volume and service charges. This coordination will occur early next year, so we're going to be working starting actually this month towards the next fiscal year. And this increase is primarily driven by the need to fund major CIP projects and to manage rising costs, including the debt service and inflation. I think that's all the summary I have.
All right, thank you for that. Now, future agenda items. Any speaker suggestions or topics that anyone would like to put forward?
Free to raise your hand.
No, no one. Oh, Christina.
Yes, I think for the issues of wildlife connectivity, we really haven't had a presentation that included Arizona Game and Fish or the county's efforts to date. And I think that might be very helpful in terms of understanding how we are going to approach RTA next, assuming that we want it to pass. So I would recommend that that be a topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would agree with that. There's a number of transportation projects being proposed, such as the Avra Valley Highway, which would be a rather disruptive. That would go between the Ironwood Forest, Ironwood Memorial Forest, I think it's properly called, and Saguaro National Park. I think that's the western one. But anyway, that would, according to the people I know that work with Ironwood Forest, that would be extremely disruptive for many of the species that we have there, which would include the cows, deer, the bighorn sheep. They have wild horses, wild dog. They have a bunch of stuff out there. And so I think that's a good idea. We should discuss transportation issues to these wildlife corridors, and there's some pretty significant ones. I could pursue a speaker from the Ironwood Forest group to come in and present to the group. They're very concerned about some of these. Thank you.
Just for information purposes, both the County Board of Supervisors and the Mayor and Council of the City of Tucson have expressed concern and have opposed I-11's route through the Avra Valley. That's what Chuck's talking about. So that's certainly a worthy topic, but they are on record and have reiterated that objection in the most current iteration of the Mayor and Council and the board.
Supported though by Governor Hobbs.
Well, she's declined to intervene. Whether she supports it or not is unknown.
Okay, Natalie's got her hand up.
Yeah, just following up with I think it would be good to have a discussion at EPAC regarding the RTA. At this point in time, there's been no analysis of how any of these projects will increase or decrease greenhouse gas emissions from our transportation system, nor is there any analysis done on any of the other transportation plans, despite my repeated attempts to try to get the Transportation Planning Committee to do so regarding the long-range transportation plan and the short-range plan. So I think it would be nice to also address how transportation is impacting greenhouse gas emissions in our region.
Excellent. Good topic. Anyone else?
I'll relay some from the Watershed Planning Subcommittee because I know sometimes EPAC likes to meet jointly with Watershed. Tucson Water has offered a presentation on lead in water and some of their new efforts to assist with investigations on the private side. So it's kind of proactive approach on working and helping an area they're not responsible for. They're also looking for, and I mean that in a positive way, and they're looking for regional collaboration. So Dan Quintanar had offered to present. And then I noticed during Carlos's presentation that there were a lot of next steps for when the bifusion facility is finished and complete, such as there might be something we'd like to hear about the demand for the blocks that's being developed, any potential for that facility, since it's being built, to grow to address our other jurisdictions' desires to participate, or private industries. Maybe some word about how it's starting to influence reduction of contamination of their traditional recycling system, and when the curbside pickups might start. So those all sounded like they might be within the next year, or maybe at the end of this next year. So it might be nice to check in with them on an update. And then I did hear an offer to share the report from Saba about balancing home affordability. So that seemed like a potential presentation topic from lots of different angles, perhaps to consider.
In addition to Mead's comments, this is Christina. I'd also like to request, since that was a national study, whether or not there's any information that affects us locally in the Tucson metro region, Pima County specifically.
All right, anyone else? All right, do I hear,
Please.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Let me show this. I wear a lot of hats. One of them, I'm a national advisor to the FBI on water infrastructure protection from attack from terrorists and other malicious actors. We just published our new guidelines for the United States, American Society of Civil Engineers. And for those of us that are involved with the water infrastructure side of things, I'm considered a national expert in this area. I've been offered the role as the lead in the United States. I'm debating whether I want to even try to do that. But if anyone has, it's ASCE 78-24 is what it's called. It just came out in November 2024. I'm a contributing author, and it talks about everything from chemical contamination to drones to cyber attacks. And in fact, you could pass that down if you wish. Considering the state of the world with the events in Syria and some of the things we're seeing with Iran and China and cyber attacks and things, it's something I wanted to let all of you know that, you know, I'm a resource. It costs no money at all to call me, but my contact information is on my card. That's all.
Hey, Chuck, could you send that to Hannah, that report, or a link to it so that she could disseminate it to the list? It sounds interesting.
Yeah, and Hannah, would that be okay?
That'd be fine. Thank you. All right, and not seeing anyone else online. Hands up.
Okay. Well, I think that is everything. Do I need a motion to adjourn?
Let me see.
So moved.
There we go. There's our slide deck. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate everyone staying on a little extra. So, thanks everyone for joining.
Good discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Paula, for leading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. You work very hard for us here, and we pester you with our